Thank you, Elad. So hello, everyone. My name is Toopan Bagchi. I'm a retail and consumer goods strategy and innovation consultant based in Minneapolis in the US. I previously led the enterprise strategy development team at Target and led strategic planning for Walmart US food, including fresh strategy. Prior to that, I served as chief of staff to the chairman and CEO of PepsiCo and led innovation for the Quaker Oats brand. And earlier on, I was a consultant with both McKinsey and BCG. I'm excited to join Elad today for an engaging discussion on how retailers can minimize waste and maximize profit. And as soon as we get the slide up, I can jump into some of the trends.
Sure. Talia, can you allow me to share my screen, please?
Great. Go ahead, share now.
Okay, awesome. Can you guys see it now?
Yep.
Yes, we see.
Okay, so we just went through the agenda and the speaker intro, and Toopan would love to hear a little bit about you on what's going on in the industry and where do you see a lot of the opportunities.
Yeah, thank you again, Elad. So, Talia, I'd like to kick us off by sharing some thoughts around current and future trends impacting kind of fresh produce retail. As you all know, a strong fresh program is critical to winning in grocery. When choosing amongst grocers, the fresh categories influence the majority of decisions, with produce being kind of the clear number one in driving that choice. And the research consistently shows that the most loved grocers deliver high quality, broad assortment, and excellent customer service to delight their customers and kind of build loyalty long term. And that said, it's also critical, especially now, to be mindful of price and the overall value delivered. But that's just kind of, again, speaking a bit to the choir with the folks on today, but of how important this category is to do right and to try to find ways to deliver value. But zooming in, I think there's kind of four trends that come to mind. I think the first is kind of this influence of foodie culture that's been around, but just continues to evolve. Celebrity chefs, cooking shows, all continuing to drive kind of a rediscovery of heritage and heirloom varieties and the discovery of more exotic fruits and vegetables. So people are experimenting more and more in the kitchen. They're seeking to travel through cooking. And as a result, I think there's a need to update and expand assortment and handle perhaps more sensitive, less familiar items that may have traveled farther. Second, the natural and organic has obviously been a theme for quite a while. Continues to go mainstream, but then there's a push to raise that sustainability and responsibility bar. And one of those means certainly is this notion of regenerative agriculture. Broadly in the sort of theme around sustainability and responsibility, I think pushes for traceability, fair treatment of workers, acceptance of kind of misfit items to reduce waste, bundle of things all around, just kind of trying to do better for the world. And this may require revisiting some standards for what's kind of desirable or acceptable as some of those production methods change. Third, brands are playing an increasingly visible role. The Wonderful Company being a great example, Driscoll's, lots of licensing deals like what Ocean Spray has done with Oppie can shortcut the time and investment required to build a brand. Coke recently actually signed some deals to license their Simply brand and Minute Maid brands into citrus and grapes in the US and Japan. And I think customers trust brands to deliver consistent quality as well as innovation. And that kind of raises again the bar for the experience further. And lastly, convenient solutions can continue to drive growth as consumers strive to balance wanting to be healthier while leading very busy lives. And so things like kits, like pressed juices, pre-cut, we've all seen kind of outpacing, and so continue to be great examples of that. So just four, I'm sure not exhaustive, but kind of some big themes around how the fresh produce area continues to evolve. And I think as we think about some of the challenges, shifting gears towards challenges, I think we know that margins are under a great deal of pressure, given recent supply chain issues, labor scarcity, and overall inflation in the US and globally. And so when you look across grocery categories, I mean, this is one that tends to have a high gross margin. Obviously, it's a very costly category to deliver. So there's always that opportunity for net margin expansion if it could be run more efficiently. if there's a little time, I'll say, certainly on the supply chain front, we have a lot of players operating with antiquated kind of DC networks and equipment, a lack of capacity and resiliency, a lack of kind of upstream visibility to the quality of the fresh produce, which combined with shrink in the DCs kind of force a lot of operators to run 103, 105% of the front store demand. A lot of safety stock obviously is necessary and significant. Fixtures may be another challenge, right? Needing the right type of equipment to maintain and display the items. And then one of the most challenging ones, I think, is actually even around talent, given the high turnover in many parts of this industry, of the lack of knowledge or engagement in the category. Just, it takes a certain degree of knowledge and proactiveness and a strong culture. And I think the best operators get this around, ensuring that items are being rotated and the bad items are being removed. So certainly lots of exciting trends, lots of big challenges. When you sort of think about technologies and solutions to help solve these, there are a number of things that are being experimented with that, again, many of you all know, things like greenhouses and vertical farming, temperature tracking and ethylene detection, RFID and GPS tracking, QR codes and blockchain and so on. And of course, various, vision AI. And that's, of course, the one that we'll get into deeper as I pass it back. But lots of things out there being experimented with, some more costly and complicated than others. And so I think those solutions that are leaner, easier to sort of implement and get going with are certainly exciting things to explore. So with that, I'll pass it back to my friend Elad. Elad, you're on mute.
Thank you, Toopan, for that. I was speaking through myself for about 20 seconds. Sorry about it, guys. So I want to thank Toopan for his perspective. And just to focus on one point that you said, we're obviously going to touch upon the technology much more in the next 20 minutes. But I think ease of implementation has proved to be a key consideration with some of the retailers that we have engaged with over the last 5 months. And I actually think that's one point where we also differentiate significantly from most of the market. So Toopan spoke on an industry level, I would say, on the challenges or the key challenges and the related opportunities that the retailers are facing today in the marketplace. We are very focused, obviously, on digitalizing and automating the quality control processes for the grocery retailers and the wholesalers, essentially players who process their fresh produce through distribution centers. What we've found is that a shrink or the waste that is taking place within those retailers, and we've seen the range coming from probably 5% at the low end to low double digit at the high end. We've seen quality mismatch as the primary driver of this waste. Quality mismatch is essentially a lose-lose scenario where the seller, the supplier in your case, doesn't get the price that she wants, and the buyer, which is you guys, the retailer, doesn't get the quality he expects. And we've identified 3 key drivers for this quality mismatch. Driver number 1 is the problem that you, the retailer, and your supply chain upstream do not speak the same language with respect to quality specs, right? You have this 25-page PDF document where you define how you should perform the QC and how do you grade it. And guess what, guys? The supplier is translating in a different way from what you meant when you wrote that document, and even when you update it every couple of weeks or couple of months. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that the way that inspection is being performed hasn't changed significantly over the last 50 years, very human-driven and subjective as a result of that. And that obviously creates issues, quality mismatch between seller and buyer. The third issue, which you guys are all very much aware, is the fact that there is very limited data available for you in real time to make your business decisions, right? Should I accept this supply from this supplier to my DC? When should I ship it to? Where should I ship it to? And essentially, we built a software platform that we believe is going to address each one of those issues. How is that going to happen? It's going to happen essentially in 3 key steps. Step number 1, think about your QC process management. The QC process management is essentially how the retailer today manage its QC relationship with your suppliers and with your front store guys, right? It's a manual process, including unstructured data, which obviously is exacerbated by the 2 issues that I just mentioned before. Clarifruit is going to allow the retailer to digitalize the entire QC process management. Essentially what we've done, and I'll actually walk you through that in a very quick demo in about 10 minutes, we invented a language. We call it the Clarifruit language. And what it means is that any retailer or any buyer for that matter in the world can take her quality specs and can even take her custom quality spec, and they can digitalize it on the Clarifruit platform. And what it means is, number 1, you don't need to deal with papers and the emails and SMS and WhatsApp and all this kind of 1990 technology stuff. But more importantly, you now have a common language to communicate your quality spec and grading to your supply chain. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is where the AI comes into the game. Today, most of the inspection process in the DC is going to involve a human inspector who's going to have or a caliper to measure the size, a color palette poster on the wall, or like in a booklet next to him to make a judgment on the color, write it on a piece of paper, and then maybe type it to an Excel electronic form. With Clarifruit, we're essentially enabling the inspector, wherever she is, in the DC, in the packing house, in the front store, to perform the QC from her mobile app and leveraging computer vision technology and other software technologies, which we will walk through again in the demo soon. We essentially allow the inspector to automate the way the inspection process is being performed. And there are 2 key benefits here. Benefit number 1 is that the actual productivity of the inspector performance is somewhere between 2 to 3 times higher. So we save about 50 to 75% of testing time and cost, if that's what you choose to. But more importantly, we make the inspection process objective and consistent. It's not about what Toopan thinks about the quality of this pallet this morning in the Indianapolis, DC, or Talia thinks about it at the Long Beach port the day later. It's about what the machine thinks about the quality, and that's what makes it objective and consistent. And then the third step, which is probably the highest ROI driver for you guys, is the decision making. Because what do you guys do today? You either type the information into an Excel, or you either develop some kind of electronic form on your own, or you use a harvest mark or something like this to store the data. With Clarifruit, we're introducing a big data platform. And it's not just about cloud-based platform and offline and online modes and all this kind of stuff. It's about the analytics and reporting that's going to allow you to make better decisions in real time. And again, I will show you a couple of examples as we move through the demo, so you know this is not just kind of statements out there in the air, but actually see some tangible value coming out of it. So that's essentially the solution that Clarifruit is proposing to the market. I think at this point, we probably want to do, we want to kind of break from the presentation and maybe move to do a demo of the Clarifruit product. The demo will include 2 key components. Component number 1 is the mobile app for the inspector, as I mentioned, wherever she is, in the field, packing house, DC, or front store. And the second component is the management and analytic dashboard. Talia is going to walk through the mobile app demo, and then I'll come back and walk you guys through the dashboard demo.
Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. One second. Great. So what everybody's looking at now is from the inspector's point of view on the Clarifruit app. Once you get here, this is the home screen of the app. You're going to, from the inspector's point of view, click New Inspection. On this screen, you'll see this is where you can actually scan the barcode or QR code that is connected to your ERP system, and it'll automatically populate all these fields. So let's go ahead. You'll see I'm going to scan this QR code. And let's say we're looking at tomatoes. I'm going to go ahead and click this button to fetch the data from the ERP system. And as you can see, it automatically populates with all these fields. So we'll just go ahead and click Next. Next will actually be the computer vision that can determine the external attributes of the tomatoes. So I'll go ahead and take about 3 pictures. I'll go ahead and click Next. And you can see the pictures. And then on this screen, you'll get to the defect screen, which is basically an opportunity for you to put in any defects that you see in the tomatoes. This can all be customizable from the admin dashboard, which we'll go to next, that Elad will show. But let's say we see a defect in the tomato for color defect. So I'll go ahead and take a picture of that. I'll take a picture. It'll automatically detect that there are 2 items in the picture, and there's the picture next to it to see what the defect is. You'll go through all the defects. If everything looks great, you'll just go ahead and click Next. Right now, you'll get to the screen that will detect the internal attributes. So you basically, I think you can see me, this is the refractometer that you'll have. So all you'll have to do is just hold it next to your phone. It'll automatically sync all the information, let's say bricks level. Again, this could be easily customizable from the admin dashboard. You can decide what internal attributes you want to show. It'll also show you the grades on the right side to show if that's the measurement that you determined is grade A, B, etc. You'll click Next, and you'll get to the full report, and all you do is click View QC Report, and it'll automatically, in a second, share the full report in real time with all the information that you just did, and it's available on the dashboard of the admin's view. And that's it. Very simple. So I'll pass it over to
yeah. Just thank you, Talia. The last screen that Talia showed, which was the grading, that's actually the grading information, and from an ERP integration perspective, when you saw in the first screen when Talia was scanning the barcode, that's where we pull information from the ERP. When Talia clicks on Done on the inspection process in the mobile app, that's when we feed back the grading information back to the ERP system. So that was the quick walkthrough of the mobile app. Thank you for that, Talia. And what I'm going to show you now is the backend, is the management and analytic dashboard. And just so you guys see how this works in real time, Talia just did an inspection on the tomatoes. That's the inspection, the couple of tomatoes that she ran, that was the grade. So this is in real time, the cloud-based platform in work. I'm going to keep the example with a tomato, but I'm just going to go to a more fulsome example with like reports, etc. So you have a richer perspective. We'll just choose one of those old ones. So again, welcome to the dashboard. On the dashboard, actually, I'll go back to the dashboard screen. That's kind of the first screen where you can see a high-level overview of recent inspection, the overall activity on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. You can customize the timing, and you can see all of your activities across the different produce categories, and actually click on each one of them if you want to get into that. The inspection dashboard is where you can see each one of your inspection on an individual basis, and then you can get into one of them and see the details. And again, I'm just going to choose one of those inspections here. The first screen you see here is the grading information. That's the exact same grading information that you saw in Talia's demo walkthrough in the mobile app. That's the overall grade, and you can see the grade also for each one of the attributes. Now, I want to remind you, we enable 3 methods of data collection into the mobile app. Method number 1 is the computer vision, right? The photo that Talia took. And if I bring you a little bit under the tent, you can see how it works here. So for example, here, the computer vision analyze the color, also the stem color, and it will also analyze size if that's what you define. So those are the metrics that, oh, sorry, that kicked out. So I'll go back to one of those. Yeah. So that's how the computer vision works. The second method, as Talia showed you, was wireless integration to third-party devices. She showed you a refractometer, a tag refractometer, which is the most common refractometer in the industry. So you can see the average grade, but you can actually see each one of the data points that were transmitted wirelessly into the app. So from now on, the inspector cannot just type whatever she wants as if she did something. If she did it in the refractometer or durometer or penetrometer or pH device, whatever device you're using, you're going to see all the data authentically through the wireless transmission. And then the third method is just entering the data manually into the mobile app. That's what Talia did, for example, in the defect screen, and you can see the results here for the defects. So that's how the grading information looks like. Now, if you guys can see at the top right corner, there's a small box called QC report. And that's the exact same QC report that Talia clicked on at the end of the mobile app, but there it's very hard to see because it's a small device, small screen. Here you can see a larger version of that. Our auto-generated QC report has 4 components. Component number 1 is the admin information. Component number 2 is the grading information. Component number 3 is the statistical distribution analysis. It can be color distribution, can be side distribution. You guys can customize it. And then all the pictures that were taken as part of the inspection process, including the defect pictures with the relevant labels, are going to be attached automatically into the QC report. So that's kind of the quick overview on how the inspection grading looks like in a QC report. If I click on the spec tab, that's where a lot of the brain of the system is underlying. So what we've done in Clarifruit is we broke down the inspection process to 2 components. Component number 1 is defining the QC process, i.e., what data do you want your inspector to collect? Component number 2 is standards, grading. So let's start with the process. What you guys see here, this flow column, that's actually the order of the mobile app screens that dictated Talia's demo before. The cool thing with Clarifruit is that you guys control it on your own. So this is all flexible and self-serve. That's where you define how many screens is the inspector going to need to walk through in a mobile, in inspection process, what's going to be the order. You can add, you can deduct, whatever you want to do, how many times you want to do. This is all self-serve. And it's not only about the screen, it's also about the attributes. So we have essentially a software platform, which is kind of a drag and drop fashion. It's like a Lego game. And the whole philosophy here is that the user is going to be able to manage the process on their own and dynamically manage it and modify as and whenever you need. So that's the case for each one of the component of the QC process, and you can create as many QC processes as you'd like. Intake, pre-shipment, storage, front store, whatever, there is no limitation. Standards is where we take the information that was collected through the inspection process and we convert it into a grade. And the same thought process is taken here which means that let's say you decided that your inspector is going to need to collect the bricks, the diameter, the firmness, and temperature information. You can dynamically manage the thresholds for the grading from your own dashboard, right? So for example, if you guys are going to be a little bit short on apples in the next 3 weeks and you want to have more supply coming your way, then maybe we take down the threshold for an A, and the minimum threshold for an A grade from 15 to 14. All you need to do is change it here, click on save, and you're done. There are no more PDF to update. There is no email or SMS or crane to be performed in order to communicate it to your inspectors or to your suppliers. The reason is because the grade is being driven by the algorithm in the mobile app, and you control the algorithm from your own dashboard right here. You can create as many quality standards as you'd like. Okay, whether it's per category, variety, or per season. Why do you care? You care because if we go back to the same inspection I showed you before that, if you remember, I clicked on the QC report tab box, and now I'm going to click on the comparison report. And what this one is showing you, and that's one of the unique characteristics of the Clarifruit platform, you can perform one inspection and you can see multiple grades instantly. Okay, so essentially a simulation. So for example, we just had 2 retailer customers telling us, oh, I got different grading for different seasons for the same category because of external conditions, obviously. And you could simulate. So for this exact specific pallet that my inspector just inspected at the entrance of the DC, I can see what's the current grade based on my existing quality spec, what would be the USDA equivalence quality spec, OECD quality spec, and maybe the last winter quality spec. And that essentially allows you to better prioritize the timing of the shipments of these pallets down to the front stores, and also give you important information relative to grading, as well as obviously financial settlement as a result of that. So that's just one example of an analytic, which, by the way, we're the only one in the world who can provide at this point. And the only reason for that is because we separated, the software architecture has separated the QC process from the grading. So it allows us to do one QC process, but endless amount of gradings for this one inspection. Couple more points. Reporting, that's where a lot of the analytics that you guys are going to look for is going to come from. I know that one of the frustrating things for a lot of the retailers today globally is the fact that it's very hard to prioritize vendors' performance because the data is just not there. With Clarifruit, it's actually available. It's available because any data point that Talia collected through the mobile app in her demo is being collected in a structured manner, structured data concept. And what it means is that on the Clarifruit platform, you can essentially sort and filter any data point that you'd like. So for example, if you wanted to figure out based on a grower name or a grower region, and figure out who are the suppliers that gave me the sweetest bricks table grapes in the last year from the South Hemisphere, you can actually do it in a couple of clicks. Okay, and it doesn't need to be on bricks. It can essentially be on any data point, attribute, defect, property that you collect, and you can again filter it based on any essentially property that you define, whether it's coming from the ERP or you guys collect it or enter it on your own. And the information is fully available instantly. It's totally exportable, whether through an Excel or whether through an API to your ERP system. The bottom line is we want to give you real-time accessibility to high-quality data. So when you need to make the decision on who is the best supplier in the last year for these table grapes, how should I prioritize these 12 vendors for next year? Should I keep performing QC for this supplier 3 times a week, or maybe because this supplier has had no rejections in the last year, maybe I can check them only once a week? Those decisions can actually be made based on data that you're going to be able to drive from this platform through the Clarifruit, essentially, SaaS platform. The last point I'm going to make is if you have a lot of inspectors across your region, one other analytics a couple of our customers found attractive was the usage report for the inspector performance. So essentially, you can have a real-time view of your inspector performance, how many inspections they did, the average duration, the photos, the errors that they had. You can literally click on the photos with the errors. It gives you real-time ability to essentially track performance and essentially increase the yield and the productivity of your team. So that's kind of the highlight. I know it's maybe a lot, but I'll pause here on the product demo. And maybe what I do before we open it up for questions from the audience, I just want to close with a couple more thoughts before we close it off. So the way we think about the value proposition for you, the retailer and the wholesalers of the fresh produce supply chain, is in 3 key buckets. Bucket number 1, we're going to help you digitalize and automate your QC process. What does it mean? It means 3 key things. 1, much more objective and consistent inspection process. We talked about that before, removing the human judgment element. Number 2, you should expect somewhere between 50 to 75% of testing of time saving. And number 3, you can now manage and distribute the quality spec to your entire supply chain in a dynamic way, digitalized way, which is going to reduce a lot of the quality mismatch that is taking place today. So that's bucket number 1. Bucket number 2, welcome to the big data world. Cloud-based platform for all of your data, real-time information. We talked about the automatically generated QC report, and we gave you just a couple of examples for the insights and analytics that you should expect from the Clarifruit platform. Again, the goal here at the end of the day is to get to this bucket, which is allowing you guys to better manage your supply chain. You're going to be able to gain earlier visibility into the quality of the produce, because with Clarifruit, by the way, you can have your suppliers Clarifruit the supply before they ship it to you, to make sure that it actually adheres to the quality spec, the digital quality spec that you have nominated. So that's just one example. We talked about the supplier performance analytics that's going to allow you to literally do a pay-per quality system with your supplier base. And ultimately, the goal is really to reduce the waste and the shrink within your internal supply chain between the DC and the front stores. So that's really how we think about the value proposition. And last point on our side, we offer today 3 essentially product solutions for the retailer segment. Solution number 1 is quality spec management. So we've seen a couple of retailers who is the first step just said, you know what, Elad, let's not go to 2020, which is your AI. Let's get to 2000 first, which is digitalization. And essentially, we are helping them just to digitalize all of their quality specs so they can manage it digitally and manage their supply chain upstream through the Clarifruit platform, which should reduce a lot of the quality mismatch, the rejections at the entrance of the DC. So that's product number 1. Offering number 2, we've also seen a couple of players in the market who focus on deeper and audited QC only for those pallets that they are going to reject or may consider rejecting. And so that means that you can still do whatever you do manually, probably, and fairly superficially for all of the supply that comes in, and only for those who are a rejection risk, you can essentially then utilize the Clarifruit platform to drive and automatically generate a QC report with all of the details. And then the third piece, which is probably most of the retailer engagement that we have so far, is essentially what we showed you in this demo, which is the end-to-end QC automation solution that's going to allow you to automate the QC process and the inspection process itself at a DC or the front store, as well as generate real-time information and insights for the decision makers. So that's kind of it in terms of the original presentation. I'll pause here and come back to Talia.
Great, thank you, Elad. So I know we're running out of time, but we have a couple of quick questions that will get answered. So this one is for Toopan. From your past retail experience, what's been the most effective method when it comes to reducing food waste?
I mean, there's probably no simple answer to that one. It's a kind of a combination, knowing that no one solution really is the silver bullet. And so I guess a bit of, I think there's some basics around kind of training and ensuring that the right processes are in place upstream in the DCs, et cetera, as well as kind of equipment. So there's kind of, I think, both the people side, clarity around process, upgrades in technology. But I think the end solution is going to be a bit of a combination of multiple things, and I think that's the beauty of having the platform be able to pull in data from other things that are there to bring together the best of all.
Great. And Elad, this question's for you. What are the top 3 reasons grocery retailers have engaged with Clarifruit thus far?
So I'd say the following. Number one, I think the number one reason is that most QC processes for the retailers today are manual, and so they don't really have the data in order to being able to figure out the exact shrink and being able to perform supplier evaluation and being able to prioritize them for next year. And so that's kind of the 2000 step, right? That's the digitalization solution. And that's kind of how we solve it. I think the second reason we've seen is retailers who experience a lot of volumes in terms of their inspector performance and judgment, and that creates issues. When you deliver it to the front stores with rejections, it's very hard to essentially apply a coherent or consistent inspection process across your entire operations. A lot of these guys who have reached out to us obviously reach out to us because we're the only player in the world today who support or can provide an AI-powered QC solution. We've actually done a couple of trials just in the last 3 months with a couple of retailers, still going on with one of them. We support, by the way, with our computer vision technology, about a little bit more than 20 produce categories today. And we support it through the LiDAR technology, which essentially allows you to take a picture of those 20 produce categories without any distance or angle constraints. So very, very user-friendly. I think the third reason has been, call it insight or analytics. I think the bigger the retailer, the more claims management or rejection management is becoming an issue, not just within the operation, but also with respect to your supplier base because of the dominant market position you may have. And so some of the retailers we've seen have been concerned, particularly with that point, And that's where our rejection management, essentially solution, come into the game and allow these guys to particularly manage this issue.
Okay, great. And Toopan, what solutions do you believe are getting the most traction when it comes to reducing food waste?
I mean, I think kind of to an earlier point, those that are going to be very easy to implement are probably going to be the ones really taking off. I think there are a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of great work being done around sort of greenhouses and so on. I mean, there's things that are quite intensive and complicated to set up and may not be feasible in every situation. And so I think the ones that are getting traction and moving quickly are the ones that can be kind of implemented and integrated pretty quickly into the existing, infrastructure and team setup versus we're like totally doing a shift to some kind of completely different operating model.
Okay, great. And I think we have time for one more question. So Elad, how long and complex is the actual deployment for Clarifruit?
So it depends on the exact customer. I will say that our API, we have a very open API, REST API, that can integrate fairly quickly to any ERP system out there. I think the stage that will take some time is the initial configuration of the quality spec on our platform, which we will help manage and support with a dedicated project manager for a retailer. I think somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks is the reasonable time frame for actually a full deployment, I would say, of the Clarifruit platform into the first couple of DCs that a customer would want to deploy.
Okay.
Maybe, are there any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I think we're also out of time, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to get in touch with us and reach out, and we'd be happy to, schedule a call and go in depth further. And like I said, this will be recorded, so we'll send an email out within the next day and everybody will be receiving it in their inbox. So thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate the time and we hope to be in touch in the future.
Wonderful.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Toopan, for joining us. Thanks, Talia.
Yeah,
thank you
my
all
pleasure.
for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening and good
Bye,
day. Bye-bye.
Bye.